So I've really thought about my own personal expectations when it comes to COP28. And I really resonate and feel the frustration of many people when it comes to the cyclic nature with which these global convenings happen. They're needful, don't get me wrong. They are important and they need to continue. But there seems to be a disconnect between what actually happens in those rooms and the ground in terms of what translates to the reality on the ground. And the more I've thought about it, the more I've asked myself, what exactly is the gap here? What is happening? How is it that we can have one common agenda, or seemingly one common agenda, but then when it comes to the implementation, there's a huge gap right there. And the only thing that I can think of is the question of leadership. That these convenings actually bring together the reality of what the picture of our current global leadership looks like. It perhaps also reveals the reality of human nature. The stark reality that there will always be those that have an upper hand over others. The fact that that upper hand seems to be something that is consistently needs to be sustained to make sure that there are those that have an advantage over other people and those that will continue to be on the back foot. And that's a reality, you know. We've read Animal Farm and this perception around there's an imbalance when it comes to even within the animal kingdom, there's always this imbalance around who is, stronger, who is, boss and who is king and all that. And there are those that will seemingly always remain at the mercy of other people. But does this really have to continue? Does this really have to remain so? And the more I've thought about it, the more I've asked myself, what exactly is the missing link right here that keeps us going around a cyclic sort of nature when it comes to the issue of climate and many other issues, but in this case, the issue of climate. And like I've said, for me, it boils down back to leadership. And perhaps it's the leadership that is intentional on keeping things the way they are, or a lack of leadership that is then unable to shift things to where they're supposed to be. It could be either. But this is my own view on some of the things that need to drastically change for anything to really move. I see us in a position where we want the same thing, or like I said, we seem to want the same thing, but then there are many other forces that come in between. There are many other interests. And most of them are selfish in a way, selfish interests, or just interests that put an imbalance of sorts that means that I will do the little I can to address the issue because I need to be able to retain a certain kind of structure when it comes to the global framework, whether it's around finance or politics or all that. And so my question to the leaders that are meeting yet again for another global convening around climate is this. Are we really meeting to address the issue, or are we meeting to discuss about the issue? Because from where I sit, we do have the control. Whether it's from the African leaders who are in charge of their own countries that have seen patterns, for example, of agricultural patterns that are just not sustainable and need to be addressed. It's within our powers to determine whether we continue with a certain kind of agricultural inputs that are harmful. And so my question, for example, to the African leaders or the Global South leaders is this. Will we continue to wait on help that may or may not come, or will we do something with what we have? Demonstrate that we can actually begin with what we have and then build on that which could come at some point in the future. Because in terms of the negotiations and how sometimes they seem to go, it seems like we make one step forward and then half a step back, or keep taking different kinds of progress or different kinds of steps that are not really making cumulative progress from a holistic perspective. To the African leaders in particular, we are the ones that hold the key to the carbon sinks, global carbon sinks, some of the major ones. The destruction of those carbon sinks are actually a function of our own practices, our own lack or mismanagement of resources. We have the power to control our people or to manage our people and manage our resources, perhaps effectively communicate why it is important for us to be able to handle our own resources a certain kind of way. We are the ones that are the host or the owners, if I was to say, of the critical minerals that are being used to advance other countries when it comes to e-mobility. But we don't have that kind of manufacturing or that kind of advancement on the continent, but we have the control. We have the control of our own food practices. We have the control of the effects, even when it comes to adaptation, for example. We have seen cyclic patterns. We've seen the floods that are constantly affecting the same area every single time. But can we not create solutions or infrastructure that will harness water, for example, when it's flooding, and be able to store to address the challenges that come up with droughts? A lot of things are within our control, and perhaps we do need to rethink our approach when it comes to addressing the issue of climate change. To the global North leaders, it's evident that there's been a reticence from that end of the world in addressing the issue of climate change. And it's obvious because of the many conversations that come up. There's a desire to do something, but when it comes to the action, there's a significant lack of action. And it's very evident, and the truth is it's very loud. And sometimes it portrays the picture that while we do want to decarbonize, we're not really seeing the urgency in spite of saying that we see it. And so the question begs right now, like I said, it's a convening of leaders. But leadership means action. Leadership actually means that we need to be able to see progress from last year to this year. For me, COPs, in reviewing many of them, seem to be conversations that, yes, are moving things forward in terms of yet another decision, yet another agreement, yet another report, but not so much is being translated to the ground. And so this is my counsel, my own perspective, my personal view when it comes to what needs to be done. Leadership needs to change. We desperately need global leadership to change. We need some form of leadership at every level. We need leadership from you and I, who are the contributors in one way or the other when it comes to carbon emissions. Every single person on Earth contributes in one way or the other. And so leadership has to start from you and I. We need leadership at the country level. The leaders who have the privilege of leading their own countries, you need to be able to look at what exactly can I do at my own level, at a country level. And so for the countries in the global south, we need to actually, especially to the African leaders, we need to act like no one is coming to our rescue, but hope that they're humane enough to actually someday come to our rescue. But we have to do something with what we already have. We need leadership at the foundations level, at the CSOs, at the organizations that have dedicated their life and time to be able to address the issue of climate. And that means that we cannot just continue at the place of talking. We have to be able to be results driven. We have to be able to want to do something that translates to actual movement, moving the needle from where we were last year, last week, last month, to some other place that is actually making progress for the sake of those that are vulnerable. And finally, we need global leadership to rise up to the challenge, because it's enough. The conversations are enough. We already know what the challenge is. We just need you to do something about it. But everyone is a leader, and right now, what we need is leadership. So there you have it, everything that you need to know about COP28, where it's happening, when it's happening, who's attending, and what exactly are they going to be discussing, and what exactly will be the outcome of the meetings. Thank you so much for joining me for this special series on COP28. I hope you've been enlightened. Please do stay tuned on our channel. We'll definitely try to keep you as updated as we can, and we'll definitely be doing a post-COP review to review whether what we expected was what came out of COP, and what exactly the outcomes of COP28 mean for you and I. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Thank you for always giving us your support. Continue to like, share, and comment on our comment section below. Give us your feedback. My name is Sellah Bogonko, co-founder and CEO Jacob's Ladder Africa, and this is Green Jobs Africa.